וימצאו ish מקושש עצים. Biom, Shabbos. Yidden were in the wilderness, and they found someone that was gathering and collecting wood on the day of Shabbos. These are based Pirushim, and the Zohar brought down two explanations what took place over here. Pirush Aleph, who the Mekoshesh Uloshen Hekesh, that one meaning of the word Mekoshesh is like the Gemara used the term Hekesh. Hekesh means comparison, that he was comparing and putting close one piece of wood to another. What was he comparing? What types of piece of wood was he comparing? The Eitzim, the plural of wood that he was comparing, is Eitz HaChaim v'Eitz HaDas, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. This means he compared them to know which is greater. Is the Eitz HaChaim greater than the Eitz HaDas, or vice versa? Pirush HaBeis, who kept a simple meaning, is in the literal sense. The Eitzim and Eitzim Achrinan. The wood is regular wood, normal wood, and not any special wood. Well, since he collected wood, or he compared wood, we'll see how we explain this in the day of Shabbos. They punished him with the punishment of death penalty. To be able to understand the connection between these two pirushim, if it's talking about Eitz HaChaim and Eitz HaDas, or it's talking about ordinary wood, what is also the meaning that he was comparing the Eitz HaChaim to the Eitz HaDas to know which one is greater? What's the concept? What was he trying to find out? Also to understand the exact language that it says there's Mekoshesh Eitzim on the day of Shabbos. Usually it's supposed to be written the other way, that when the event took place and then what he was doing. First it should have said that they found a person on Shabbos that was Mekoshesh Eitzim, that he was Mekoshesh Eitzim, he was gathering wood. Or it could be usually, again, you set it up, you say the time, and then you understand the difficulty. The main thing is that it took place on Shabbos. From the fact that the pasuk says that he was being Mekoshesh Eitzim, and that is what's said first. Only afterwards it says it was done on Shabbos. Moving, it's understood that the main emphasis was that he was gathering and collecting sticks. To be able to understand all these questions, we first have to preface what's the idea of the Eitz HaDas B'chlal. What was wrong with the Eitz HaDas? What exactly was the Eitz HaDas? It's brought down in Targum Yerushalmi on Bereshis. Kol man the achel, whoever ate minei from the Eitz HaDas, mafrish ben tav lebish, he was able to distinguish, to separate between good and bad. That was the idea of the Eitz HaDas. That's why it says Eitz HaDas toiv v'ra, that they would be able to know and differentiate between good and bad. According to this explanation of the Yerushalmi, not understood what was the great sin of the Eitz HaDas, that because of that they punished him with death, with a death penalty. It comes for him and his children afterwards, because in other words, any children that could have been born were taken away from him, and so on. Until we say that the spirit of Tumah will remove from the earth, and then whatever the punishment caused to him, that was negated. Since someone that eats from the Eitz HaDas knows to separate between good and bad, if so, it's not a sin whatsoever. Just the opposite. It's actually a beneficial thing. This is the entire goal of avodah, to differentiate and separate between good and bad. Moving, it's also understood from this the idea of the Eitz HaDas, The way the Eitz Hadas is, in its level, it's holiness. Why? It says that someone that eats from the Eitz Hadas is able to separate between good and bad. That's obviously a holy matter. So therefore, the Eitz Hadas itself, the capability of separating between good and bad, that's Kedusha, because it's Avodah. The problem that the Rebbe is going to explain, and it's going to be a lot of the theme of the Maimer, is that what happens later? What is the outcome of it when it's not channeled correctly? Ella, the kasher megate it weiter, if a person doesn't take it to the next step. Okay, you have this intellectual awareness between good and bad, but you don't act upon it. So then, after much chain descent, it's possible the result and the outcome, the consequence of this will be bad. Now, this idea that Eitz Hadas itself was good, the Rebbe is going to bring from a proof from something else, from the fact that the Eitz Hadas was located in Gan Eden. If it would have been bad, Gan Eden wouldn't have tolerated it. According this will be understood why in Gan Eden was the Eitz Hadas, the L'chura in a movement. Seemingly it's not understood. Gan Eden hu kulei kedusha. Gan Eden is entirely holiness. We know that Gan Eden cannot tolerate something, any being, any existence that's the opposite of the will of above. Where do we see this? That's why it says that after the sin of the Eitz Hadas, Hashem chased Adam HaRishon out of Gan Eden, because once there was a person that committed bad, so Gan Eden itself would not tolerate the person. So therefore, and this is also known that Gan Eden cannot tolerate something that's negative, is from a different idea as well. It's also understood from the fact that Gan Eden is the payment of reward for fulfilling Torah mitzvahs in this world. We know what is the reward of the mitzvahs. It's not something separate. You do a mitzvah, you get something else. But the reward is the outgrowth of the mitzvah. It's the reward in Gan Eden is the ray of the person's Torah learning and the person's service of Hashem. Therefore, since Gan Eden is the reward, meaning the actual outgrowth of the mitzvahs, the mezem muvon shu metzias shekol kedusha. From this understood, the Gan Eden is entirely holy. And if so, if Gan Eden is entirely holy, then Cain in the movement, if so, it's not understood. How is it possible that in Gan Eden there should be a plant of the Eitz Hadas? How much more so something that seems to be even worse than the plant itself, that Adam HaRishon ate its fruits. Therefore, we must come to the conclusion that the idea is like we said before, the Eitz Hadas atzma hu madregus hakadusha. The Eitz Hadas itself is in the level of holiness. That by much chain descent, by much type of development, can come out from it bad. So the Eitz Hadas itself was not bad itself. As we will explain, how there's the idea of something that is at its initial level is good, but it can allow for negative to develop. And he's going to give multiple examples of this. Second paragraph on the page, the last paragraph on the page, the idea behind this is there are two types of ways in the service of Hashem. The that these two ways in Avoidam are to be found both in the Avodas Hashem. There's two ways, and there's also to be found in the Hizbonenus, in the meditation that brings to a person's Avodah. And also, these two ways are reflected, we can find these two ways in the chain descent, in the spheres above, that we can have these two things. Okay, So let's go and explain this first in avodah, then he's going to bring it in his bonus, and so on. The ikar avodah, who the main avodah is, Kamesha, like it says, Hayom la'asoisam. Today, you need to do this. V'loy hamedrash ikar ela ma'aseh, and learning is not the main thing, but action. So therefore, the main point is what we need to do. The top of the next page, v'nechlach l'gimel inyonim, in the avodah of mice, in our action that we have to do, it's divided into three things. Torah, avodah gemilas hasadim, shaleim ho'il moed. There is Torah, there's the service of Hashem, davening, and there's doing mitzvahs, especially doing acts of kindness that upon them the world stands. So now he's going to explain how there is a level and a higher level in avodah of action. So he says, in avodah the ma'aseh, efshali is from didavagbol. In the avodah, in action, it could be in a way that's measured and has a boundary. So he first talks about the last of the three, gemilas hasadim. For example, in doing acts of kindness, that is great mercy and compassion. Still in all, the gemilas hasadim can have a limitation and a boundary according to Torah. It says, for example, the shalach koidim. If you see that there is going to, let's say, something is going to get lost, something is going to get destroyed. There's a flood that says Zutei Shal Yam is going to come and wash everything away, so you can save your own possessions before anyone else's. Afil l'chaverach, even before your fellows. Afilu lavicha, even if it's something that belongs to your father, you're allowed to save your own possessions at the risk that if you don't save your father's first, he'll lose his possessions. Afil l'rabach, and the same thing, even when it comes to your teacher, which you have more obligation to honor your teacher than you even have your father. So we find that gemilas hasadim is limited. There's a mitzvah of hashavas aveda, a mitzvah of saving someone else's things, preventing it from being lost, and still in all, there's a limitation over here. When it's a choice between yours and someone else's, yours takes precedence. Yet on the other hand, it says, the Chazal say an interesting expression, that if a person has an opportunity to help, and he makes all types of calculations to figure out on what type of situation and which type of situation he is he's obligated to help and not obligated to help. So the Chazal said that someone who is very careful and makes sure to follow the letter of the law over here about will he or will he not, in this case, am I obligated, am I not obligated to? So chas v'sholem, someone that's very exact with someone else's poverty, eventually he can come to a state of poverty as well, the Chazal say. When a person's involved in doing acts of kindness in a measured and bounded way, the aniyecha koidmim, it says the inyancha koidmim was probably supposed to say ad asher shalach koidem, that we're saying the aniyecha koidmim, maybe I'm sorry, your own poor people, in other words, of your family, of your town, and so on, take precedence over someone from a different town, someone that's not family, and so on. To such a degree, you're very exact, asher shalach koidem, that your own possessions take precedence over someone else. So eventually he comes to poverty, and the Chazal in a different place explained, the ein ohel badas. What is the true level of poverty? Someone that's missing poverty of the mind, that he's limited in his appreciation, understanding of Torah and Hashem. Zehu bagam l'de anias begashmias. From the anias bedas, he comes to poverty also in the physical, in the material sense. The klolos inyan ha'niyus hu heipach kedusha. The general idea of poverty is the idea of the opposite of holiness, because it shows he's lacking, especially if the physical lack is a result of a spiritual lack. So here we see that a person can do gemilas chasadim in the world of action, and still it has, if it's done in a limited way, it has negative connotations or negative results, even though the thing itself is not an avera. So now he's going to bring to the second one of the three things, Torah, Avodah, and Chasadim, the idea of Avodah, davening. So too, in the avoid of the heart, which is going on davening, the Amr Azal Chazal said, Al tas filos chakva el rachmim tachnunim. Do not make your davening an established set thing, but make it of something of mercy and requests and begging Hashem. What does that mean? What's the possibility and what's the thing you're supposed to avoid? Since a person has set times when he's obligated to daven, he has to daven 3 times a day. He's a from a yid, he follows Shulchan Aruch. So then, when he's davening, it's possible that he's just like paying off a debt. He's doing an obligation. I need a daven, so I gotta go and daven now. There's no consideration for the actual feeling involved in davening and so on. If it's just done by rote, out of just paying, what he needs to pay, it's the opposite of davening with philosophy, and then his davening is not received above and automatically his needs that he's asking Hashem for are not being fulfilled. So that is again a case of in avodah where there's a certain limitation because he's following Shulchan Aruch. So too, it's also in the line of Torah. Though the mitzvah of studying Torah is day and night, there's no time limit to Torah study. It's not like other mitzvahs that have to be performed a certain time of the day or a certain time of the year, etc. Torah is something that's obligatory day and night. Still in all, it's possible that his Torah study should be measured and has a boundary. He learns Torah from time to time, meaning he finds, according to Shulchan Aruch, ways of different types of exemptions. Lots is to fulfill his obligation by learning 1 chapter in the morning, 1 chapter in the evening. So that's how he fulfills what it says. So he learns 1 chapter in the morning to fulfill the Vayigisu B'Yomam, like the Chazal themselves say. And another chapter at night, he fulfills the idea of Laila also as well. Another option of how the person fulfills the Vagisla Yom Alayla is that by reciting Shema Yisrael in the morning, he is the morning Kriya Shema. He's fulfilling the morning obligation, the day obligation of learning Torah. Vagisu B'Yomam, and fulfilling the night obligation of learning Torah. That's by reciting Shema Yisrael by night when he's reading Kriya Shema by night. So therefore, but if that's the way he does, he's doing things only in a way of looking for exemptions and loopholes to be able to do the bare minimum. Chazal said a punishment about it, where it says that whoever is not involved and preoccupied with Torah study, whatever the Chazal say about it is a very negative language. The Chol all of the above examples is the different types of measures and limitations in the avodah that entails a person's thought, a person's speech, and a person's action, which in general include the 3 things of Torah, avodah, and gemilas chasadim. So too, it's in the level of emotional service to Hashem, that when we are serving Hashem with our emotions, there's also a limited form of service. Meaning the innate, natural love that we have for Hashem, the natural awe that we have for Hashem, It's possible that his emotions should be of love and awe in a measured way, in a bounded way. What is his feeling of love for Hashem? Not because he realizes that godliness and Hashem is essentially good. He has a feeling that godliness is something beneficial to him. Chassidus plays it off the pasuk. It says, "Kirvas alakim litoiv." The closeness of Hashem is good for me. The emphasis on himself that he is gaining from it. Hainu shum is boinen. He contemplates in zayin metzius was leint sich varem. His focus is himself and what's beneficial for him. So then the love that he has for Hashem is limited by his being, by his own self, because it's self-focused. When the feeling of love is a result of the fact that he realizes that this is good for him, so it's possible that from this could eventually come out a love of foreign things, a love of things that are the opposite of Kedusha. How come? Since even in Kedusha, when he has a love, it's in his own being, and even in his own ego, since the feeling is out of his feeling, his love is out of his feeling, that what's good for him, what he wants and what he needs. So it's all about the person, it's focused on the self. So then from that can eventually come about that his love will be in things of the opposite, because he could have also appreciate, whatever it is, this taiva, whether it's taivas heter or taivas isur, this is also good for me. A car is good for me also. A house is good for me also. A delicious piece of cake is good for me also. It's all about him, not about the objective goodness of the thing. So it's a limited form of love. So too in fear of Hashem, though the fear of Hashem is closer to bittul than love. That's why usually we speak about yesh misha'oyev, but most of the times we don't say yesh misha'yari, that there's an ego that's fearful. Still, and all when it comes to fear of Hashem, it's possible that the fear should be a fear of punishment, not the fear of the sin itself. That he's fearful of the sin, he's fearful of the punishment. Fear of punishment is about his own self. Again, he doesn't care about the thing, he cares about how the consequences are going to happen to him. So then afterwards can come about a foreign fear that is bad. So we see that it's possible from a yira, which is seemingly a midah toiva, but since it's focused on the self, so again, after davening, you can forget about the yira that he has of Hashem, and he can have fears and things that he's scared of in material things that he's worried about. This will happen to him and that will happen to him. So that's what he's saying. Though during davening he meditates and contemplates the way he's supposed to be, and he does it according to his level. He has a true love of Hashem and a true awe of Hashem, a fear of Hashem, since he's in his own self and ego. It's possible that after davening, his love and awe will be in matters of the opposite. That's the boundary limitation in the service of midas. Later on, we will explain how there's also in the intellect that brings the midas also a level of limitation as well.